On today's episode of AllPundits podcast, we have the honor of hosting Himanshu Manglunia, a distinguished alumni of IIT Guwahati class of 2015. With over 7 years of work experience in the tech industry, Himanshu Manglunia is a seasoned professional in the fields of customer-centric problem solving, data analytics, and operational excellence. His work at companies like Google, Facebook, JP Morgan Chase have established him as a leading expert in his field. His proactive problem solving has elevated self-serve and operational excellence into new heights. Join us as we hear from Himanshu Manglunia on his journey and gain valuable insight into succeeding in the analytics sector.
Welcome to All Pundits. Thank you for agreeing to do this, first of all, and helping us for this cause.
Well, thank you so much, Arpan and Saurabh both. I think it's a pleasure to be included in this list of people getting featured on this podcast, and I am really happy and I'm delighted to know that you have started such an initiative for the welfare of the college, for our college first, and then later extending it to other institutions as well. For a young institution, I would really still call IIT Guwahati as young. It's very important to build the alumni base as active as possible and as detailed as possible. So it's a welcome step that you both are taking in this regard. So really happy to be here to talk about my experiences and happy to support and help in whatever I can.
Can you take us down, to the trip down to your memory lane and tell us more about your college, that is IIT Guwahati, and experiences and how it shaped you in your career path?
For sure. What a great question! What a great question to start this off. I think engineering colleges. I would really like to generalize engineering colleges as like a place which provides you or which puts you into a boiling pot. Which makes you ready, which makes you, as ready as possible for any kind of situations you face in your life. Take, for example, people are talking today that should topics like taxes, should topics like common sense be moved into curriculums in schools. But engineering colleges or engineering colleges like IIT Guwahati, they indirectly teach you how to do these things, either via startups, either via via peer groups who might be starting up, or who might be or take, for example, like clubs that we used to have in IIT Guwahati, like eCell and economics and finance clubs, consulting clubs. They started off during our times. So I think they provided a very good platform for someone's self-development, for someone's personal development, I would say. College life was really, really good, I would say. I never thought that I would land up into a premier college like IIT Guwahati, let alone in the same hometown where I was born and brought up. That was a cherry on the cake.
Interesting.
But it was, so day one or like month one was more like, do I really belong here? Is this the right place for me? It's basically something that you call as imposter syndrome, which is very common in corporates as well as of today. So
Correct.
The same syndrome that hits you when you reach something, when you reach some place like IIT Guwahati. So that's the first thing that struck me, and I was trying to figure my way out. I was trying to figure my, what am I supposed to do here? I mean, studies is okay, but is this the time where people say, IIT kar lo, uske baad to mauj hi mauj hai? Is this the step after which people will stop telling you that do X, and after that it's mauj hi mauj hai? So that's the thing that you try to figure out in your year one, and then. As year two comes, you are divided from your hostel group basically. So you start off your lobby group, your hostel group, for which you all have common courses and you have different branches. As year two starts, people start going to their department specific classes. People start going to the topics that they are interested of. So you basically get divided again, and then you have to find your new peer group. You need to find your new friends group with whom you have matching timetables and stuff like that. So year two is all about that. I'm basically trying to explain it to you how I felt in these years as a trip down to memory lane.
Adding to your point here that I think you have been an active person involved in the cultural festival that we had, culturing, and I think that also teaches a lot of things while as we move or as we take a trip down to our memory lane. We look at things like team management, leadership, and other things that we have learned on the go, or maybe functions like Manthan or other things that we used to do.
Absolutely. It was like probably our batch was the time where, these things were getting banned or downsized. During my first year, second year, these were like going on in full swing. And as rightly mentioned, Alcheringa really played a very big role in shaping my personality, in shaping my, in shaping me as a person, as how I portrayed myself as someone who is like you immediately pointed out that I possibly have missed Alcheringa in my trip down the memory lane, which was right. And yes, it did make a very good point in my personality. And the motivation of joining Alcheringa or any other cultural fest or any other fest or a team per se is more like get a POR point in your resume, which might help you in getting into non-tech interviews or interviews where you're not really looking for coding profiles but looking for personality and stuff like that. But believe me, it never worked. It's a harsh reality that I want to call it out today. That thing never worked. What actually worked was the questions that they pointed at you, which are not related to Alcheringa. They were you were able to answer them, right? Because you went through a parallel boiling pot of responsibilities, a parallel boiling pot of things that you have to deliver for certain people, for maybe yourself. That kind of helped you in shaping you as a person in your whole college life. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alcheringa played a big role. Point did not really play a big role in my career, but the experience that we had, it created a big dent in anyone's life who was part of that team.
I wanted to talk about, you have worked at a technology giants like, Meta or Facebook that you can call, Google, and then even JP Morgan. What were the most, challenging interview questions that you have ever faced, and how did you tackle it?
Well, one thing I want to start off this segment is slowly the interviews are getting more towards like behavioral based rather than fact based or like question answer types. Right? Nobody today asks you, tell me how to write a for loop, or tell me what's the difference between syntax A and syntax B. You would ask you a behavioral question like something that you asked me just now. What are the toughest questions in the interviews? So they'll ask you questions like, tell me about a time where you faced a situation where things did not go your way, and how did you tackle it? There is no right and wrong answer, but there is always some sort of judgment that the interviewer does from what you responded to this question, right? So JP Morgan was more, I would say, they wanted someone with a lot of different qualities. I would say a little bit of product management, a little bit of analytics, a little bit of coding, and they found those qualities in me and selected me. But when you talk about like Facebook and Google, it was entirely behavioral based. They did ask me SQL questions, but SQL was very, very basic and just like a formality. But apart from that, the questions that they asked were like very behavioral based. Like, what are some of the situations where you had a conflict with a coworker, and how did you tackle it? Right.
Okay.
And the way you respond to these questions, they try to map your response with the values of the company that they have built. Right. Now, Facebook had values like be bold, move fast, and break things. So in any of your responses, if you said something like, hey, we had to move fast, or something similar in nature, then the interviewer immediately recognized that, yeah, this is something that could fit into company values. So what they look for nowadays, or I would say in last 3 to 4 years, is more like organizational fit than a talent. A lot of the qualities that people seek are coachable in nature. So if you show the right amount of like alignment with the company's goals and visions and values, and you also show that you are a good and fast learner, then I think that 80% of your battle is won. You are already 80% inside the company. So that's how these big giants actually look to hire most of the profiles. Obviously, there are some very specific talent-specific profiles. Like they'll definitely ask you coding if you're looking for coding profiles. But the profiles that I looked for, which were mixed of like project management and analytics, it's
While we are talking about your professional life, can you tell us about a project that you are particularly proud of? We would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's not just one, but there are a couple actually. One from JP Morgan and one from Facebook. And the broader theme was automation. it was so if I have to talk about the JP Morgan one, actually, it was more about building a news aggregator website or a news aggregator platform, which is aggregating news and stories from different websites and put them into a database, right? So there's actually a whole workflow where you identified a problem, proposed a solution, built a prototype, and then productized the prototype. Right? The first three parts are, recognizing a problem where a lot of analysts on my floor, I was part of global research, by the way, where a lot of analysts on my floor, they actually looked at sector specific stocks, like someone was looking at IT stocks, someone was looking at manufacturing, etc., etc. They follow news on a daily basis.
Got it.
They used to go to like maybe Google News, look for keywords, and find out their news articles, clicked on them and then prepared a summary. What we started doing was we preloaded the keywords, we hit the Google News API, we built data structure on a daily basis, and you can actually set up alerts that whenever a news hit for a particular keyword, say for example COVID-19, you'll get an email automatically from the system. And also that data used to get stored on a data structure if you want to do further analysis on a historical basis at a future date. That is something that I was really proud of, and I always call it out in my resumes and whenever I talk to discuss in interviews. And the one at Facebook was also more like automating stuff, which was very, very manual in nature. And that's why I really like to call myself as someone who built proactive solutions and self-serve solutions to reduce like manual effort and save time.
What importance would you like to give to automations currently? Saying I want to look things from your viewpoint, like what are the things that companies should look for to automate, or people working at their current job should look to automate?
Yeah, so automation has, like, according to me, again, there's no thumb rule. Automation is more like if you have certain number of steps that are very redundant in nature and do not really require any kind of human oversight, then that process could be automated easily. In a layman language, in a layperson language, I would say look at something like making a coffee, right?
Got it.
That it's a very redundant step. You need to go to the machine, at a certain point of time, you need to click on what kind of coffee you want to have, get it on a cup, get it to your table. Now, definitely it requires a manual effort of walking up to the coffee machine, getting the coffee back to the table. But the whole process of automating this could be achieved in the near future with like robots, right? Which is again a kind of automation. Talking about desktop automation, if you have tasks like, I want to download a file from a certain website and then send that file to 10 people, that's something that could really be automated by anyone. So these are the things that companies could look for where, there is redundancy and there is no human oversight that is required here.
Got it.
Again, a call out here that there are things where, you still be looking at automations, like is the process failing? And if it is failing, what are the, points of failure that you need to, monitor? So automation is good as long as you're monitoring involved into it, as in how is the automation really performing.
How are the insights, different in the approach to innovation and experimentation at Facebook or at Google? Like, we'd love to know that.
Absolutely. So, one thing that really stands out at these companies is what is the core company value, right? And the core company value I would say it's a very common between Facebook and Google, is like they focus on users a lot, right? And I have worked in like an organization called Trust and Safety in both Facebook and Google. So what our goal has been in both the orgs is like to protect the user from any kind of harm or safety issues on the internet or on the platforms that we expose to them. Right. So when it comes to innovation, right, any kind of innovation is supported as long as it is focusing on the mission. If you're an entrepreneur but you have an idea of a code which could really, contribute to this mission, you will ample kind of support, to make it possible.
Got it.
So innovation is encouraged. You are even given like 5 to 10% of your bandwidth to try out stuff, try out tools, try out learnings. There are ample amount of premium courses. These companies always have like, tie-ups with Coursera, Udemy, and you can access those courses very, free of cost. One unique thing about Google is like Google always sponsors 2/3 of any kind of education you want to pursue, any kind of learning you want to pursue, if that relates to your role. And if that kind of course does not relate to your role, it will still sponsor 33% of the course fee. For example, if you want to learn swimming, and swimming is not really related to your course, Google will still reimburse you 33% of the course fee.
Beautiful. So
In terms of
that's
learning,
so
Google is
nice.
like leader. Yeah, Google is like supreme leader when it comes to learning and development for employees.
And what is the organizational structure or decision-making process, differ in these two companies specifically because they are mostly into tech and internet industry. So
Yeah.
if you could,
So, I would say there is some amount of bureaucracy in both the organization, because when an organization really becomes, more than 1,000 employees, Facebook has easily, I think before the layoffs happened, 80 to 90,000 full-time employees. Facebook currently has 140K full-time employees. So when the numbers are huge, you need to put in some sort of bureaucracy, right?
Correct.
And second point is more about Google, where there are people who have been with Google for more than 10 years, 8 years. You need to have levels at which they can perform in a sustainable manner. So at times you have like 6 managers between you and Sundar Pichai. You will have 7 managers between you and Zuckerberg. That's all because to accommodate people who have been for very long in the company. Now, as long as decision making is concerned, Facebook is more bullish on focusing on impact. So impact is basically a keyword at Facebook is taken into account for any kind of tie breaking. If you want to choose between 2 projects, you'll always look at what kind of impact it is creating to the metric that you are chasing for. If you are chasing for user safety, which one is making users more safe, you'll choose that project. Doesn't matter whoever it is coming from, doesn't matter how much time it will take. Google is about chasing metrics which are into OKRs. Google is more about as long as you are making any kind of impact, it's good enough. And there are ample opportunities because there are so many platforms that Google owns. So there's always scope for impact. There is always scope for any kind of work that you want to. So decision making, in response to your question, Facebook is more metric driven. Google is more, I would say, impact driven. If you want to do any kind of impact, you're free to do any kind of project.
Thanks for putting that to us and our audiences as well. And as you have cracked both the interview processes and you mentioned slightly about behavioral part, what are the key differences between the two the two company have while interviewing a candidate?
So Google, I would say, honestly, I might have had some kind of interview bias when I interviewed for Google because I was coming from Facebook, and it happens to common in the industry. If you're moving from one giant to the other, you'll automatically have a lot of weightage in your application. So
Correct.
Google was more about asking the same questions or asking the same kind of questions in multiple interviews. So I had close to 4 rounds, I think, in Google, and all of them asked behavioral questions related to, tell me when X happened, Y happened, and in Facebook, it was more structured. You had like 1 round for problem solving, 1 round for leadership, 1 round for technical challenges, and then 1 round for, say, collaboration. Right. So even if they ask behavioral question, they'll ask these questions according to these themes, right? For critical thinking, they might ask you, tell me about a time when you faced a challenge and you accepted it and it turned out really well. Or tell me about a time when you took a decision which was against leadership and it turned out really well. So these are the things that they do in a very structured manner. Google is more about 4 to 5 people will talk to you and ask the same type of question, and then feedback is given. So that's the key difference between both.
Okay. And any specific values that you think are common to have for both the companies if you're applying for both the companies or working in both the companies, or any such giant for that matter? 2
things. I would say one is focus on users. So whenever you are answering a behavioral question in which your decision making metric was user, you have to put brownie points with the interviewer first. And second, whenever you answer a question which relates to data, like you saw the data and you took a decision A, you have to put brownie points. So people at Facebook and Google, they all like user-centric people and metric-centric people. So try to fit your answers according to these 2 common themes, and you should be good.
Thank you for providing that brownie tip for all our audiences. And anything else that specifically on these lines itself you would want to share to the young graduates, maybe of IIT Guwahati or any other engineering college or maybe non-engineering college, who are preparing for these interviews for a tech giant?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that has become really easy today is informational equity. Go on the internet, look at platforms like Google, look at platforms like LinkedIn, and you have so many resources out there to prepare for your interview, right? So earlier it was very tough because information wasn't out there and it was not equitable. To ask around, whoever applied for something, got an interview, can you help us? Now everything is published. So I think first step that you should do is really look for what interview are you appearing for and are the resources available online. 99% as of today, you'll find resources that are available online.
Correct.
Rest 1%, what you could do is again ask around people who have appeared for the same interview, ask for tips from them, ask for mock interviews with them, and that will help you a lot in cracking an interview here. And lastly, I would say don't be afraid. I mean, when it comes to me, I applied for Facebook without a referral, without an MBA, without a master's degree, without being in the same country itself, and I got an interview call. Believe it or not, when I got the first call or first email from HR, I was like, "You are a scammer. You are not interviewing me." It's a full scam. So the first 2 calls I had, I was very easy around what am I talking about, that stuff. But in the end, it turned out to be a really genuine offer. And even the day I landed in Singapore, there were some apprehensions. But slowly, steadily, it was too good to be true.
Beautiful story. Like, when was the moment then you first realized कि नहीं भाई ये सही में scam नहीं कर रहे हैं, मुझे अब prepare करना चाहिए, मेरे next 1-2 round clear हो गया. When was that moment of
So I want to focus on one keyword that you just mentioned was preparation. So one thing that the HR really told me is that you don't need preparations for Facebook interviews. Right? You just need to be clear about your experience, whatever you have done till now, and you need to be very basic. You need to be sure about everything that you have written on your resume. And honest to yourself, you are done, you have cleared the interview. And I did not prepare at all for Facebook's interview. One of the other reasons was also that I had nothing to lose. I was already in a very good position, very good career track at JP Morgan. So I had nothing to lose, that even if this doesn't work out, I'm still at the same place, a very happy place. So that was another thing that really played out in my favor. And whenever this came, I was more like, let's look forward to what I'm joining than what I'm leaving behind. So preparation is not required at all. In answer to your question, the day I got my visa, that was the day that I was sure that everything is genuine and I'm really going to Singapore. And, it was a kind of a long shot dream come true. Because we always thought that, okay, foreign jayenge, foreign mein kaam karenge, foreign se padhai karenge. But there are 3 things which happens when you actually land a job in another country. One is either you have been educated there, or you have a permanent residency or some people living there, or you have got an internal transfer from your company. But I got none of the 3 points in my favor. None of the 3 points.
All odds were against you.
All odds were against me. That's why it was more confidence that it's a scam, someone is fooling me and things like that. But correct. All ended up in a really, really good.
Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us at AllPundits. Something I genuinely wanted to discuss with you, given that particular thing has a deeper impact in my career and my decision making process. So do you think that extracurricular activities or hobbies or choosing to lead an event during your school or college actually influence your career choices or decision taking abilities in your career?
I think there are 2 parts to what you're saying. First is, should we try or should we actually spend time on extracurricular activities? And second is, will that impact on my career choices, right?
Correct.
When it comes to the former, I would say life is very short, and the number of years that you get in Indian context to choose a career track is very less, right? You hardly get a window of 3 to 4 years to figure out your life. And after that, all those things start, shadi kab karna hai, falana. So things really hit you bad, right? So I would say till that time comes, which is usually around your 12th standard, I would try out at least one kind of sport and try out at least one kind of cultural activity. Right? All other skills would automatically come into your role in whatever you're playing in these 2 things, right? Because you would automatically learn teamwork, you'll automatically learn collaboration, leadership, stakeholder management. You'll automatically learn all these things if you get into any kind of these kind of extracurriculars. So when it comes to your former questions, I would say a big yes. Try out as many activities as you could till the decision point comes in. Second, will it impact your career choices? I would say indirectly yes, because it will give you a direction, but it will not tell you what exactly you have to do, right? Because people who are maybe, for example, so again, take an example of US Army, right? There are so many people in US Army who retire after a few years, and then they get into these tech companies and become really, really good managers. So my level manager at Facebook was actually a helicopter pilot in US Army, who spent 5 to 7 years in Japan and Singapore flying over these countries. Right? And what a lovely manager he was, one of the best managers I ever had. So, these things really help you in shaping up your personality, and you never know what kind of skill would help you in your career. But the problem is you can't really consciously make a choice figuring out, okay, मैं इसमें अच्छा था, so I should do this. They unconsciously, help you in shaping your career, but they can't directly impact your career choice, according to me. That's a totally personal.
Unknowingly काफी चीजें impact कर जाती हैं career को. Unknowingly काफी चीजें आपके behavior को भी change करती हैं अंदर से.
Absolutely. And it's childhood actually. The experiences that you get in your childhood, maybe for example, if you got bullied in your school, if you're meant to stand at the at the most back row in a dance group or something like that, they help you in shaping your personality, because at some point of time you will feel, okay, something like this happened in my childhood, but I want to reverse that on my personality, and you make that your strength. So a lot of these things unknowingly are actually from our childhood experiences, but they help you a lot in making sure that you are on the right track. One thing I also want to mention, very, very related, is like when I was appearing for my Flipkart interview and placements, we had like 2-3 rounds in which we have to go to multiple rooms and meet the interviewers. So the first round I went in, there was some feedback. So they used to transfer feedback writing on your resume, on the backside of the resume. So after the first round of resume, the feedback, and I was not supposed to see that, but I still saw it, was he talks a lot, but I'm not sure if he worked, so much.
Okay.
Those 2 lines or that 1 line is still within me. And every day I'm trying to be a very, a better listener than a more of a talker. So even in meetings, I get called out or I get feedback that, Himanshu, you don't talk a lot. You should engage more into conversations. But that one thing still strikes me that, I was given an indirect feedback that I talk a lot. So I'm, be a better listener, more and less of a talker.
During, college days, कोई भी नया बैच आता था, तो you were the first person who would, reach out to them through various social media websites, make them feel home. And at least for our cases, I have seen. अभी भी LinkedIn पे या Instagram पे या Facebook पे, Instagram पे तो उतना नहीं, but या Facebook, LinkedIn पे उस time पे, whomever we wanted to connect, there was a mutual friend named Himanshu Manglunia. And how important did you would you give to networking in your life? And is it still, the way it was before, or you have changed your ways? And something on those lines we would love to hear.
Before this, I want to tell you something. I'm not sure if you know about this thing, but there is a thing called code switching, right? Recently, when Kantara was nominated in Golden Globes or something, the actor who went there, he was called out for, faking an accent. So a lot of people supported that. A lot of people did not support it. The phenomenon is actually called code switching, where you try to involve with people, the majority of which you're surrounded with, right?
Okay.
So during code switching, you try to maybe speak in their accent, you maybe try to speak in their language, or you maybe try to refer, cultural commonalities between them. So according to me, that was a moment of code switching for that actor of like Kantara, where he was talking in that accent. Same thing happens with Priyanka Chopra as well. Same thing happens with a lot of people who went to the West for interviews and stuff. Why I'm talking about this? Because this is something that is similar between me and networking. I have been a person till my, say, 12th standard. I've been a person with a very, very limited network. The place where I come from, Guwahati, doesn't really look at it. So IIT, a lot of people in Guwahati till like 5 to 6 years ago, they don't even know that there's something called IIT Guwahati. Correct. So the engineering culture of, pursuing engineering or from these premier courses was very, very limited in Guwahati, and you don't have a lot of people to look forward to, or to ask for advice, or to ask for like career counseling or things like that. So I made a
Correct.
point that I'll network more and possibly become that person for, as many people as possible, to whom like people can reach out to as a soundboard or maybe as a career counselor or something who can advise them.
Correct. And it was so important at that particular period.
Absolutely. So it was more of a code switching moment for me where I thought, let's actually be the person that you wanted to reach out to when you needed. So that was the reason why we started something called Freshers Forum. I think that was where I gained a lot of popularity, where whoever posted something, I was the one who commented, congratulations and welcome to IIT Guwahati. I got told for that as well, but I was like, okay, I'm proud about it. So that's not an issue.
It was a beautiful thing. Now I look back at it. It felt, while entering a college, there was a prejudice that, ragging hogi, ye hoga, wo hoga, engineering college ja rahe ho, वगैरह वगैरह. And someone being so sweet, a senior and coming up and, telling कि ये doubts हैं, तो ये मत करो, कोई issue नहीं है, ये सारी चीजें मिल जाती हैं, यहाँ पे लेके आने की जरूरत नहीं है. Giving that guidance from even when you have not met that person tells, so much about the place and the bringing that you have. And it really felt nice and warm. And I think it was much needed at that period of time. And I hope कि अभी भी कोई ना कोई कर रहा ये चीज.
Thank you.
And any suggestions, points that you wish to tell us, moreover, which would could help us, or any guidance that you would like to give, we would love to hear.
Absolutely. I think one of the motivations that, if I'm not wrong, you started this is also for people to understand कि उसके life में career choices क्या है.
Correct.
I would say try to get in variety. Try to get in as many variety as possible. I can suggest a lot of names. There's Rahul Ritesh, the pilot in Indigo. Nishit Sharma, who is a vlogger on YouTube. So there are a lot of people from these different backgrounds of life who can really share experiences. And people know that IIT के बाद तुम ये भी कर सकते हो, right? There's Aman Runwal, who was like maths and computing का बंदा. He went on to do a master's in fashion design in Paris.
Correct.
You won't even imagine that these are the choices that people took and are successful in their life today.
Correct. Kushagar is making manga.
He's making manga. No, I mean, क्या कर रहे हैं लोग? So people need to know them. People need to, and they should be accessible to people. So I think this is a brilliant platform to connect, seekers and people who could tell them the questions. So I would say you should definitely go for getting variety on board.
Thank you for your time and agreeing to do this, and we love
one
that.
One last suggestion. Stop calling bhaiya to people on podcast. It really feels कि बूढ़े हो गए हैं.
Okay. I'll try and edit that.